Hello, this is Christina Wallace again, and today I am going to show you how to make rose petals. These are roughly the tools you would need in the beginning, but as usual check out my description for toolbox and specific to project tools. And here I'm just using Modena clay, Cold Porcelain, and I'm trying to tint it a little bit with oil paint. Now, tinting it doesn't work completely, so unlike with petals, which tend to be nice and light, with a lot of flowers all you need to do really is to tint your clay. But with greenery, foliage is slightly different because it's very hard to get the deep color without actually affecting the structure of the clay. So don't roll it too thin. Because I'm using Modena here, it's very easy to roll it even on green board, but for most brands and especially unbranded Cold Porcelain, I recommend using one of those very cheap sleeves for stationery. I got these from Ryman's, for example. So here I'm thinning the edges of the sleeve. Be careful not to stretch it, not to disturb the nice kind of jiggly part into it. And here I'm sticking the leaf to the vayner in the position that I want it in, so that it doesn't go side to side when you get the other side of the vayner on. You might find that your clay or your gum paste sticks to your vayner just a little bit too much. In that case, you would need to add a little bit of lubricant, maybe baby oil for clay and petal base for edibles. For gum paste, I use petal base for everything. I love it. So I'm sorry about the focus of my camera going in and out, but yeah, those of you who work in sugar probably recognize that this is very much the clay technique, inserting wire like this. And the reason for that is that with gum paste, due to tylose in it, gum paste becomes really bouncy. So this kind of a very clear groove would be very difficult to get with gum paste, although I think it would be possible, but difficult. And the problem here with this leaf is that it may seem very easy to make, but I don't find it that easy. And the reason for that is that in order to make the groove quite pronounced and easy to operate, the groove in the middle, the leaf needs to be reasonably thick, because otherwise sometimes the cutter just cuts through it. And yet for the edge of this leaf to be as pronounced as it should be, you can't really thin it really well without stretching the pattern. So the optimum solution here would be to kind of roll it, not too thin and not too thick. So once your glue has dried, just finish off the drying process like this, so that your leaves are not too inverted. Now in general, I find these leaves, as I just mentioned, not as easy to do as they seem to. And the reason why I'm saying it is, if you find them difficult as well, both in gum paste and clay, then I just want you to realize that it's not you, it's just a trickier leaf than meets the eye. Okay, so this one is going to go into focus in a minute, but I just want to say that there isn't a particular clever way of doing this and starting on this covering of the wire. You just need to find your way about it. As I just mentioned, the paste, the clay needs to be quite pliable and wet and sticky, and then you just play around with it and find your way of doing it. Once you've done your best smoothing without the water, finish it off with water. I'm running behind a little bit on this voiceover, so I'm sorry. And to avoid the bulkiness of the flower tape, do make sure you use glue. Super glue is perfect, but the thing is, once it's in place, it's in place. So I'm not mad on super glue because it tends to be messy and stick to my fingers. So I use this glue, which is, it does the same job. It doesn't dry as easily, but then it doesn't stick to fingers so badly. So whichever you prefer, I would say if you have a knack for using super glue, then super glue would hold it better here. But once your leaf is in place, and then you added a clay cover onto it, and that cover has solidified and dried, it doesn't really matter what glue you used in the first place. And also make sure you do use this white craft glue before you apply the clay over the wire, because I find that it sticks better like this. It does, and doesn't just go rolling around your fingers and not sticking. So one little tip here, if your paste is just a little too much, cut off the excess and then continue to roll it down. And if it gets too bumpy and you just can't get it smooth, then squish it with your fingers to be kind of smooth as you look at it head on, and then look at it in profile and cut off the excess with scissors and then roll it around again. I find that seemed to work quite well. If it's your first time on my channel, I'm very glad you popped in. I mostly make videos of how to make very pretty, hopefully, flowers out of cold porcelain and also gum paste, as I work in both. Or normally I do them in cold porcelain and then just talk through differences, if any, of doing the same in gum paste. So yeah, if so far it seems like it's your cup of tea, do please make sure you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it to make sure that you will get updated on all my videos that come up, because I try to do a weekly upload, mostly on Fridays. Sometimes I miss it and sometimes I do little extras. So yeah, and of course thank you very, very much for all of you who keep popping in and watching my videos. You're lovely. And all those people who are in touch with me via my Instagram and Facebook, and those of you who booked my workshop for chrysanthemum that's coming up on the 7th. You are so lovely. Let's go back and see where we are with this. So yeah, you just keep working it very, very gently. Keep your clay nice and moist, and smoothen it up. Smoothen it, I can't pronounce this word. So basically make it smooth with all the tools that you have at hand, and once you've done your best, finish it off with water, just like this, and let it dry. Okay, so now we're coming to the end of the assembly of the first little branch that we're doing, and if it's your first time doing it, you must be a little bit depressed, thinking, well, it takes forever, one little branch, and where would it ever take me? I just want to remind everyone that first time is the hardest, and it does get better and easier all around with time. It also helps if you decide to do all your branches at the same time and all steps at the same time, and move on then to all next steps, if that makes sense. So basically just break down your process in steps and don't do it from start to finish, one branch at a time, if you need more than one branch to make, and it does get quicker and easier with time. Now that our branch is ready, we would need the thinner for the oil paint to color those albino little leaves in. And we're going to use oil paint. This is a good make to use, and I want to draw your attention to something interesting and strange. So notice the colors and which one is darker and which one is lighter according to what it looks like on outside. And now as you opened your colors, they look the opposite. So it's a bit of a bummer really when you try to buy these things online, but anyhow, you get to know your paints as you get into it more and more. So using paints is one of the two main ways to tone, to color your cold porcelain flowers, all parts of them. And I'm not going to touch on a dry dust and the other method. I'm just going to stick to paints. And what I'm doing here, I am diluting the thick paint that comes out of a tube just a little bit with a thinner until I think it's right. And my consistency here is, I don't know, it's just like sour cream perhaps. You just have to play around because for different things you might need different consistency. And this one is my tried out little petal. That's not very good. I've casted it off as a bad horrible little petal that I wasn't going to use, and I'm trying out my colors. Now these are the three brushes that I'm going to use, and I'm going to have some of them as very dry, two other ones are more or less dry, and this one is obviously for applying the first coat. A little bit like painting a wall, I suppose. Well, not quite, but you'll see what I mean. So these brushes are makeup brushes from Primark, about 5 of them for £2, great. And this is your first step. So you apply it, not too dry, not too wet, just a medium consistency, and that's going to be your first coat. You do it to both sides, but you don't actually have to do it to both sides with some different type of foliage, because a lot of foliage has lighter side when you turn the thing over, the leaf over, but not with this one. This one I decided to keep similar, and this brush is drier. It's either completely dry or semi-dry. In this case it's completely dry, and as you see it's removed all the blotches. And this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to just touch up this. See, I'm drying the brush and I'm just going to do a little bit of a touching up. I mean, you could really work on it and do it more precisely, but this is just to give you an idea. And I'm going to add a little bit of pigment using this paint here. So don't squeeze it in straight onto your palette, because you might just squeeze out way too much paint. I've done it before. If you've seen my other videos, you would have seen me do it. So it's a good idea to use toothpick. Take your time with this particular step. You could, up to a point, take off the colors that you didn't like and probably recover a little bit. So it's kind of flexible up to a point, as I said, but it is a good idea to have all your spare little leaves that didn't work out, or even just pieces of colored clay, so you can try the colors out on. So yeah, this step, I can't really describe it all very well, but it's definitely worth investing a bit of time and learning this technique and playing with it, and I hope this is going to give you a bit of a starting point. So what do you think about this technique? Do you think it's worth the bother, or is it way too messy? Has any of you actually tried this before? Please leave a comment. It would be interesting to hear about your experiences. And so this is my little take on toning rose foliage. Of course, depending on what colors you choose to use and what vayners in particular, you're going to get different results and different looks. And I'm hoping that my own foliage for this rose or everything else is going to evolve and probably going to look different, say, next year. So yeah, it's not to say that I'm trying to make one version for YouTube and then another one for myself. It's just like anyone's, my work does change over time, but for what it's worth, I'm quite happy with how it came out, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I wish you all the luck in the world with your own projects. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all next week with a new tutorial.